Okay, welcome to the inaugural experimental episode of watching two software engineers build software. You'll see how the sausage is made, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Peter is here to show you what to do, and I'm here to show you what not to do. No. Um, so we're just gonna build some software together, and you'll maybe learn some things of how we think as software engineers, and maybe learn a few things from it. Peter, you want to add to that?
No, no. This is just going to be a process of yeah, seeing stuff built from scratch, as you said, Jay. And I think there's a lot of value in like I see a lot of people look at final products and really not know how it got there, and so it seems really intimidating. But watching things get built along the way and understanding what best practices to use as you see it in context is going to be valuable for a lot of people.
And if it's not abundantly clear, this is completely unscripted. This is as unscripted as it gets. Even though I do know what we're going to be building today. That's
Yeah,
about as scripted as it is.
yeah. So if you want to just dive into it,
We're
what
going
we're
to
going to be
build
building.
a mountain.
Yeah, we're going to be building a mountain. We are going to be building essentially a terminal application that will be a Reddit client. So for anybody unfamiliar with a website called Reddit, I'm hoping there's nothing indecent on their front page right now. It's basically a website that has people upload posts, people can upvote and downvote posts, people can leave comments on posts, and you can view this website at reddit.com. If you click on a particular post, if you look at their comments, then you can see all of the comments that people upvoted or downvoted. And so what's interesting about this website is that they have a JSON API so that you can basically get all of the information from their website as raw data. And so what we'll be building is something, this is an example of a program that somebody else had made, a terminal application to view Reddit. So RTV is the name of this particular project. Browse Reddit from your terminal. And if you go down to their little demo over here, you run the program RTV in the terminal. It logs you in, it loads up a subreddit. You can use your your arrow keys to go up and down, select a particular post, look at all the comments and things like that. We're not going to be building this all in one shot, but essentially this is the goal.
Oh, I thought we were building this whole thing in 20 minutes.
Yeah. The easiest way to build this whole thing in 20 minutes is to basically copy and paste their code, put your own name on it, and call it JTV instead of RTV. You're pretty much done. Cool. And so I guess the first thing to note about Reddit and the reason why this is a particularly useful project to get started off with is I mentioned that Reddit is a website that has a JSON API, which means if you put a /.json on any page in Reddit, then you can get all of the raw data that is used to power that particular page.
That's sweet.
So yeah, so it's super easy. There's APIs out there where you need to sign up for an API key, or you need to use OAuth, or have a bunch of authorization, authentication type of hoops to jump through. But for Reddit, doesn't matter what page you're on. If you're on a particular page, let's say you're viewing the comments for this particular post, then you can go to that URL. Sorry, my Zoom window's in the way. .json. And it's kind of weird. I know a little bit about this. You have to have the slash at the end of it. Sometimes it's inconsistent. I'm not exactly sure how they built their particular application. Sometimes it works without the /.json. Sometimes it's just .json, but it always works consistently if you have a /.json at the end of any existing URL. So what it means is it's actually easy to sort of explore this API and trying to figure out where all this data is coming from. So we're going to be using the terminal. We're going to be using Ruby as a programming language. And we'll also be using a tool called Insomnia, which is sort of helps us view this raw data in a way that's easier to parse. But I think we might be pulling in some Ruby gems along the way, but that's pretty much where we're going to get started.
Who even knows?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you ready to dive into this?
Sure.
All right. I will open up a new terminal window.
So you're working on a Mac.
I am working on a Mac. Some people with their Macs, they use custom terminal software, but I use the terminal program that comes with the Mac. Let's see, I'll cd into my documents folder code, and I'll make a new folder called Reddit terminal app, cd into Reddit's terminal app, and I guess we'll just make a Ruby file. Call it reddit.rb. Later on, we might refactor this into multiple files, but let's just use this as a starting point. The text editor I'll be using is VS Code. I guess we could also use Sublime, Jay, if that's something you're more comfortable with.
No, this is my good opportunity to see VS Code in action.
Yeah, and if you guys watching at home are disgusted by my white terminal and my white, my bright text editor, it's largely because when I'm teaching classes, so I'm an instructor at Actualize, and when I'm teaching classes on a projector, I like having bright themes, which makes it easier for students to see as opposed to dark mode.
Yeah,
I
may grab my sunglasses if that's okay.
Yeah. You know, I always find it hilarious how much people are like, oh, I can't see. You're like, I assume you spend 90% of your time browsing the internet with white pages with black text. So I don't know how that's so difficult for you to get used to, but tomato. Okay, so before we get started, I guess let's take a look at what some of this data would look like.
Do we think Reddit, we're like pulling in like the equivalent of the homepage?
Yeah. I mean, so Reddit is basically a website that's divided into subreddits. So if you go to the homepage, I believe you're essentially seeing a particular subreddit. This subreddit is like r/popular or something like that, but there's different subreddits that you can go to directly. So like /r/programming is a subreddit that I go to, and so it's like each subreddit is a specific topic. There's subreddits for gardening, or subreddits for people posting pictures of their dogs or cats and things like that.
So we can probably have the client. The user can pick which subreddit they want, and then we pull all the posts from that.
Yeah. So I think the way that the RTV, the app that we were looking at earlier, the way they had it built is that by default it shows you the homepage, and then the user can enter their own subreddit they want to see. But we can start it off where the user just asks for a subreddit, and then we display that subreddit.
Yeah.
So in order to do that, do you want to just build out some of that Ruby code first, or do you want to take a look at the JSON output of something like this in a little bit more of a sane way?
Yeah, but I suppose we can look at it in Insomnia.
Yeah, so basically you can see the JSON output in Chrome, and you can install a Chrome extension to get a better sense of this, but I have a program called Insomnia. It's a free application, and you can make web requests in this particular application. So here,
I'll test the
Vimeo API. And we'll dismiss this for now. So the web requests, we don't need any of the form stuff. Let's get rid of this. No body. We're just making a GET request to this particular URL. And what you get in Insomnia is the same JSON. It's a lot of data. But what's nice about this is that you can fold it up and you can start to see things bit by bit. So basically, this is your JSON output. You have a hash or a JavaScript object, and you have basically two keys, kind and data. And then data has children.
So is each child a post? That's what it looks like, right?
Seems like. Let's take a look. So each child has kind and data. So it seems like, I've messed around with the Reddit API before. They have this sort of recursive structure where everything is built upon the same data structure of an object with kind and data. And then you can have children with the same, sort of recursive data underneath it.
Right. So I can see here from the title, right, this is the Microsoft Defender Smart Screen post.
Exactly. So if you go back to the normal HTML view, that's the first post over here. I mean, it's worth getting into, obviously, but we can just dive into it. But some posts have video, some posts are just links, some posts are just people commenting on things. So we'll have to sort of deal with those nuances. But my gut understanding is if I fold up each child, you're going to see at least each child has a title. So what we can start to build is a Ruby script that asks the user, what subreddit do you want to visit? Make the web request, and then just display a list of titles.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's display a list of titles as a good starting point.
Yeah. All right. So let's first start really, really basic, and we'll just make a Ruby script that says puts welcome to the Reddit terminal viewer.
You'll never need a browser again.
And then we'll do print enter a subreddit. And then it'll be up to you, Jay, for you to tell me if how much error handling we want to deal with. But let's just sort of plow through this right now.
Yeah.
And then let's do subreddit name equals gets.chump. And then here's where we'd make our web request. The web request would be basically to this particular URL.
Right. We just insert the subreddit name, right? Yeah.
Correct. We'll string interpolate into here, subreddit name. And for right now, let's just put URL. So for those of you who are less familiar with Ruby, puts simply put stuff to the screen, console.log equivalent to JavaScript. Print is the same thing. The difference between puts and print is that puts always puts a new line return and print does not. There's some other subtle differences, I think, but that'll sort of do ya. And let's go into our terminal.
Takes it and eats it.
Yes, yes. Always a very weird thing to me about Ruby, by the way, the gets.chomp.
So weird.
Like puts and gets, but you always have to do the .chomp to get rid of the white space at the end of the line, I guess. You have to get rid of the return that the user just entered.
Right, otherwise it's gonna look for programming enter, program new line.
Cool, so we can run this code, ruby reddit.rb. It's asking me for a subreddit, and I'll say FDS, and there's
and we're done, and that is the terminal app, everyone. Thanks for watching.
One quick thing that we can throw in here that I like to do for these types of applications is, makes it a little bit cleaner, is as soon as I start up the application, I'll put system clear. I'm not sure if this will work the same way in Windows, but basically system will basically enter terminal commands directly. So if you type in clear into your terminal, it sort of cleans off the screen. So when you say system clear in front of your application, let's say you have a whole bunch of crap in your terminal, and then you run ruby reddit.rb, it'll sort of clear off the screen. It doesn't wipe the screen. It sort of just pushes everything down. Everything is sort of above. And you could run a different command to wipe the screen if you wanted to. And those are things you can Google. But so this is our application so far. So yeah, we're gonna need to make a web request to that URL.
Which is a joy. That's a joy in Ruby. And actually, I have no idea what the latest and greatest version of Ruby, how easy it makes that. It's like what, like 6 lines of code using the internal net HTTP.
Yeah. So the net.
Do you know it by heart?
HTTP. We can Google it really quickly. I could probably do some of it by heart, but so there's two things. You're going to need to make the web request, and in this case, the web request is going to give you back a string of JSON. So you'll also have to parse that string of JSON into a Ruby object or a Ruby hash.
Yeah. I think let's leave as many. Let's see how many gems we do not have to bring into this. The fewer dependencies, the better.
All right. So let's look up Ruby web requests. The ultimate guide to Ruby web requests. All right. So I just happen to know that the gem that Ruby uses internally is called net HTTP. But I'm curious what this little link has to say.
When is this from? This article?
That's a great question. It's one of those wonderful blog posts that have no.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at this.
But that's pretty sweet. Those 2 lines.
those two lines will do it. But what I don't like about this, I've used this before. I'm actually building an app now where I'm trying to avoid as many dependencies as possible. But what I don't like about this is that the way that the GET request is split into the domain and then the path, and then you're not specifying HTTP versus HTTPS. It's like, it's a little bit clunky. And I did find a shortcut.
Wait, what does get response do? Oh, just
Yeah,
it's the whole response object.
yeah. So there's different things. Let's just try this real quick first. But then there's different methods that come with a net HTTP gem that we might want to dig into, where I think it'll give you it'll give some nice conveniences.
I don't know why I thought it was like 6 lines of code. This is not. It's only 2 lines.
Yeah, and then this particular site, I guess, has different.
Well, this is
gems that
already
you can
using the
use.
gems. Yeah.
Yep, but let's give this a shot. I think the thing I used was get response, and then there's some niceties that come with it. But let's give this a shot. So over here, if you're going to use a gem, you require the gem at the top of your file.
But it's not really a gem. It's not a gem as like an external gem. It's the part of the library. What's it called? The standard library. That's what it is.
Yeah. So
because basically Ruby has, and this is for the viewer, Ruby has 2 parts to it. It has the core part of the language, and then it has what's called the standard library, which doesn't get put into your computer's memory unless you need it. So it's parts of the language that are used less frequently. But in order to use these parts of the standard library, you have to actually invoke it, as we're doing with that require statement on line 1. So here we're saying, hey, we want to use the net HTTP part of the standard library, but it is still part of the Ruby language. It's not an external.
Right, we don't need to install anything.
Yeah.
And the advantage to that is that, if you don't need to require it, then your program could take up less memory. It doesn't need to load up every single library, every single, dependency.
Right.
Okay, let's just see what this comes out of this. Example.com. This should go to reddit.com.
So you have to break up the URL there.
But if you use this other shortcut, you don't. So I'm not a fan of this. It was a little bit clunky for me to use, and there was some weird issues with HTTP and HTTPS. But let's just see what happens.
Oh, yeah, let's see.
Let's pull up my Ruby Reddits, enter subreddit. Let's enter a subreddit that we know exists.
We get
nothing. It's beautiful.
Ha.
So let's try and use their other syntax, which is get response. So this will return a string with the HTML content of the page. Yeah, I return nothing. Instead of puts, let's do PP, which stands for pretty print. I think we'll need to change this up. Yeah, it's an empty string.
It is
get response.
Do you think the www is problematic?
Yep, that's what caused me issues, is that there's aliases to these URLs, right? So the fact that you're not entering the HTTPS, you could probably get rid of the www. Like basically this is like a 301.
Yeah.
Like this is redirecting to reddit.com, so you have to guess to the right thing. And so the way you're making this web request is a little like on the nose, I guess. It's literally making that web request. It's not following those redirects. And so you'll have these different types of issues. Yeah. So let's try. I think you can just type the full thing, even though that page says otherwise. I'm not sure. There's a method that comes with an HTTP, which acts a little bit more sane.
I'm getting somewhere.
No, that's not it. All right, so we're gonna have to find a better example. And this is all because Jay
When you went to
use...
can you go to actual Reddit on your first tab in Chrome?
Yeah.
Is that www? Or it's not? It is.
I copied the URL directly.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, this is what I did, I think. I first encoded the URL using this URI library.
Yeah.
like this kind of
Yeah,
thing.
see, this is why I
And then I
remember
made the
it.
request.
Yeah, I remember this stuff takes like 6 lines of code, not just 2.
6 lines, that's an overstatement, Jay. How about this? We do URI equals URI, and then we'll get rid of this, and then URI. I mean, we're kind of cheating right now. We're not really showing the secret sauce because I've already played around with this somewhat recently. Many requests. So it's like URI.parse.
Wait, so what does too many requests mean?
I mean, we could have gone over the API limit, but that doesn't really make any sense because
Isn't that coming back from the Reddit server?
yeah. And there's no way we could be making too many requests because
So weird.
we're not authenticated. There's no way it would know where the requests are coming from.
Our IP address. If you go in the browser and look at the, or Insomnia and look at the JSON again, it will still be there if you refresh, right?
Yeah, if I send it.
Yeah, it's not giving us the too many requests.
Yeah, it's just basically how you're using this particular gem.
Well, can you just try a different URL maybe?
Yeah, like google.com.
Well, that's weird. They do weird things there. But yeah, something like that.
Okay, like actualize.co.
Yeah, well, that's a redirect too. Maybe anyone can
like
code.com.
anyone can learn to code.com.
Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't matter what I enter there. That one worked.
So we're not getting. So can we print out the response?
But the question is, does this allow us to put in that a URL on our page?
I don't know.
Ruby. I know that.
Yeah, could we like get part of the response, like response.body, right? That will give us the HTML.
Yeah, if we did.
I'll just sanity check. Yeah. Okay. Sweet.
Yeah. So our original URL, let's just hard code this in for right now, was this. And I'm just going to leave the programming in there.
Now this is, yeah, that's weird. So, I mean,
so we have one of two choices. We continue to do this without any gems, or we install a gem, which is the entire purpose of the gem, is to basically deal with all of this, these exception cases and things like that.
Programmers really like getting into rabbit holes that they don't need to.
Fair enough, Jay. Fair enough. We're gonna have to do some more Googling then.
Wait, slow down. So, I mean, one difference, and I don't understand why this would give us the too many queries or whatever it said, error. But we're trying to get back JSON here, whereas when we pulled from the actualized site, we were getting HTML. So I don't know if this library behaves differently.
Fair enough.
Those two things.
It's a fair point. Let's see. What is some URL that we can use? JSON placeholder. There must be some other JSON.
Oh, example JSON?
Yeah.
You can go to the open. Oh. Sweet.
Is that really JSON though?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. What's not JSON about it?
Just making sure. Because I printed out a little too pretty over here.
Oh.
I was worried that it was just a plain string of not JSON. I don't know. Okay. So then let's do that instead. The documentation that we saw didn't have the URI.parse. I'm following this example. So URI, and then you say get response. And the reason I'm doing this is because I don't have to split up my URL into two pieces. There's different syntax that comes with this net HTTP gem, but it is kind of an awkward gem. So let's see if this works. Ruby Reddit. I'm not using the subreddit right now. So it does work.
It does work. So at this point, we could use like the JSON parsing to split that up.
Correct.
But
If you wanted to.
this is not the right data. Well, maybe we could just make a placeholder client instead. JSON placeholder client. So what do we think? Can we Google
let's
that?
take a look.
I would Google the status code that we're getting back.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's do that again with.
Too many requests is usually at the API provider is denying you, right, in some way.
Back in here. Maybe we just mangled it up or something, but 429.
Is it just making a plain GET request?
Yeah, GET response.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's any special headers or anything like that.
Let's see what happens when we. Yeah.
Too many requests. Do you want to look at Ruby net HTTP?
No, let's just. I'm curious to see what that is defined as. Yeah, it's rate limiting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I would be interested to see it in context of Reddit. What happens if you throw in Reddit?
I want to see the Reddit Ruby net HTTP.
Well,
that's a terrible thing to Google. All right, so you want to see in terms of Reddit?
Yeah, because if they are doing some sort of rate limiting.
Yeah, but that doesn't really make sense. It's because you aren't setting a custom user agent, and Python's default user agent gets very. Oh.
Yeah, so Reddit is doing some sort of limiting.
I guess there's
it's a good thing we have a browser, internet browser, because we never find this information because our client doesn't work. Sorry.
Yeah. I guess, Ruby's default user agent is like flagged or something. I'm not exactly sure what it means. It's like it gets very heavily limited.
Yeah. So the next thing they're suggesting, and again, obviously we have to port this to Ruby.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Okay. So we look up Ruby net HTTP user agent. One word.
Yeah.
Ugh.
They're using a whole new, like on that second line, a get object.
Yeah. This is the 6 lines that you were referring to earlier. Let me look up this method.
Any one of these things should work. Yeah, you're saying.
Yeah, but we'd have to split it back up. Yeah, we'd have to split it back up into like an net HTTP.new and then set the user agent.
And you're probably right that any external gem would handle this automatically, but this is our unique constraint we're applying to ourselves. No outside gems for now. Totally give up.
Okay. The alternative syntax is exactly the thing I didn't want. So what I understand is get response is, oh wow, this person is literally trying to solve the problem that we're trying to solve. Look at this.
It was asked 4 years ago.
Yeah, it's Reddit. It's literally the Reddit blocking the user agent.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, so the get response to me, it seems like it's a shortcut, and I'm not sure you can configure the header.
I'm just curious
of this shortcut.
So when we use Insomnia, where there's no generic header, it's not like we're specifying any specific header.
Yeah, but Insomnia, has its own. It has its own user agent built into it. Just like if you're making a web request from Chrome, then you have a user agent. If you're making a web request from Firefox,
user agent is Chrome or Insomnia. That's how. I actually never really thought about what is a user agent.
Yeah, okay. It's for as far as I can tell, it's the
software you're using to make the request.
The fingerprint of like where this request is coming from, and you can always fake it. Like you can be in. I've seen some like third-party browsers where they're like, oh, if you're having issues, then you can just set the user agent to Chrome, and maybe that will resolve some of the web page issues and things like that because the server might respond differently to it. Mm-hmm. So this is the method signature. URI or host. Path is nil. Port is nil. And then it takes in a block. But I don't know what that block is. Yeah.
But you're dead set on using the get response method.
I just don't want to do this crap. All right, Jay. All right.
Yeah, this is. Right. Note how we're taking the response of an answer that was not selected as the winner and had only one upvote.
What? There's no. What are you talking about? There's literally no other answers here.
I know. I'm just making a note of it. Certain amount of skepticism here.
All right. So that's the URI. I think we can still use the same URI. I don't think we need any query parameters on this. The request is making a new thing,
like
and then we're setting a user agent, and then we're saying.
But I just want to ask you one question. How many lines of code is this?
That's about 6 lines of code.
Yeah, exactly.
But all of this was only like you saw. Like if you could use this shortcut, then you'd be fine. It's specific to Redis.
Yeah.
Guess we can put this or pp this over here, and this we'll use this URI.
But that's just printing the. You want to print the response, right?
Yeah, you're right. Ugh. Could have used the gem, Jay.
Hey, we may have to resort to that. Undefined local. It'd probably be a request, right?
I'm guessing.
Hmm?
Permanently moved. So now we're back into this whole thing where we have to split up the. You really want to go down this path, Jay?
Why, you want to use a gem?
Well, it depends what our goal. In 30 seconds.
Well, is our goal to be done, or is it to display how software engineers work through stuff?
Right.
Now,
if you're asking how software engineers work through stuff,
they're just pulling gems.
Those are two. Yeah. Well, there's two approaches to it. But if you're asking how would we debug this problem, this will get us to it.
I spaced out while we were talking. I have no idea what you just pasted in here.
I just found a different code example.
Oh, okay.
Let's do URL. That, and then this would be URI. And then this would be URL. I don't know why they did it that way, but okay. So they added a user agent, and then we can pp response.body. I'm not sure if this is going to help us. Define method host.
On line 20.
This is URI. My bad. I changed the names of the variables because they were inconsistent. This code's just crashing.
Wait, did you change both references to UI? Oh, you did. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the error message that we're getting? End of file reached. Oh, that's
gonna be hard to debug that.
Yeah.
This is an error within the net HTTP library. It could be from a lot of things. It could be, that it's somehow reading this information wrong.
Can we? Right. Well, this is using a weird.
Yeah, header.
Well, on line 20, it's using a method called start. Oh, that's what we used before too.
Yeah. This is why nobody really likes using the net HTTP gem.
It's
like
really,
the syntax is really.
I think for such basic stuff like thinking a web endpoint, like this wouldn't be that difficult. Like this shouldn't be the part that we're getting stuck on.
Well, the only reason we're getting stuck on it is because you want to use archaic libraries.
Yeah.
And to be clear, it works perfectly fine. We were able to get that original example working just fine with, like, let's say most websites, but the way Reddit is rate limiting this, you're just hitting this edge case where it's like, it was literally one line of code if you're using that get response
Can we see
shortcut.
Right. If you comment out lines 21 and 22, I just want to see if we get an error message. No. So it's erroring out on line 21. What was that?
I just printed out the request. So yeah. That's not an easy thing to debug. You're just sort of shooting in the dark here, unless you really wanted to get into the net HTTP internals.
It sounds like you're really driving towards using a gem.
No, Jack. You're the driver. I'm the navigator.
Okay, can we?
I mean, here's. I would tell you honestly, use a gem. You'll solve this problem right away. If you don't want to use a gem, you're going to be looking at a lot of different code examples until. Or one path is just use a gem. Second path is find some more code examples. You'll eventually find the Stack Overflow thing.
Yeah, we'll eventually find it.
Third is dig into that HTTP documentation more thoroughly to really understand how you're supposed to configure that.
I want to see what happens when we do 3 minutes of looking at documentation.
Okay. Here's the net HTTP. Like, I assume this is the most straight up.
I want to see the start method. Do they have examples down below?
No.
I
mean, you're digging into the nitty gritty of HTTP as a language with this library. It's not written in a very user-friendly way.
So,
I mean, I commented out this line above. What's the difference between this and this? It's not much.
Oh, right? So we didn't get that error message before. Well, we did before we did the host name. That's the difference, right? On line 12, it's URI.hostname. Can you see what happens on 21 if we just do host name? Yeah.
Right, at that point, these two codes are incredibly similar. The only difference is
it uses the add
how
field.
You added the field. Yeah.
No, it didn't error out.
Yeah, but it didn't do anything. So net HTTP.
One second. Can we go back to the code?
Start. Takes an address. Yeah.
So we're just not getting back anything. And if you use a different, and if you comment out line 20. Just want to see what happens. Is it going? Is it
an empty string?
So is it even going through?
Maybe not. I don't know. Yeah, no, it's doing the same thing as this one. It's literally the same exact.
What happens if we use the?
On this one, I printed the response, and this one I was printing response.body, but this one has no response. Neither has a body. So it's basically the exact same thing. This is exactly where we started, Jay.
Could we use the placeholder JSON? I'm just curious if we have this syntax right.
Yeah, I think this code and this code at this point are doing the exact same
things. Yeah.
So I don't like the way this code is written. It's kind of like it wrote the URL twice, and it's kind of like wacky.
Sure. Fine, that's fine. We can go back.
Oh, well, let me just clean this up. This is using the URL. It's permanently moved. You want to use that placeholder.
So the code is syntactically correct at this point.
Yeah.
It's just we're getting a 301. So could we Google Reddit API 301, something like that?
I mean, we saw exactly what the issue is, though, no? Is that we need to set the user agent. And I don't even know if we're successfully setting the user agent.
But if we don't set the user agent, do we get the too many requests error?
No, basically it's not affecting anything. Move permanently. Move permanently. Like it's, we're back to where we started before we even got.
When we get the too many requests error, what syntax we're using? That was the get response, that original get response method?
Yeah, which sort of configured a lot of the stuff for us.
So can we
sort of have to.
Can we Google Reddit API 301?
That's Crystal. I don't know which one you want to look at.
I don't know. Any of them?
This is not Ruby. This is Crystal.
So it has to follow the redirect. And that's also OAuth, so who knows what's what over there.
Right. And a lot of these are OAuth questions, which is.
Okay. Well, maybe the next step would be to get it working in a gem. And then maybe go back. Maybe let's see if
the gem actually solves our problem.
Yeah. Or is it a more systemic problem that even the gem doesn't handle properly? Like, for example, maybe we are using the wrong URL for this purpose or something.
Perhaps. So I have a gem called HTTP.
Right, that's the one that I used to like using.
Yeah, there's a lot of different gems out there. I don't know if that's the most popular Ruby gem. So if you follow, you should just be able to do response equals http.get and then put in your URL and it'll automatically encode it and do all the things. Just print out the response to it right now. Oops. Data.
Oh yeah, let's do programming. Oh, that is programming because you're ignoring you're hard coded.
Yeah, so I'm going to print out response.body, which is going to be a string and it's going to be huge. Oh no, it's not huge because it streams out until you grab it.
How do you get it?
It's basically a streaming body. Like instead of just giving you if in case the body's like huge, you can pull it out in different ways.
How do you get access to
I believe if you wanted to, you can do JSON.parse.
And for that, we have to require the JSON.
You do, but it's actually already it's already required when you use the HTTP library.
Got it.
And you have all of your stuff, which takes 2 minutes, but whatever, who's counting? Or I think they have a built-in method instead of JSON.parse. I actually kind of like writing it this way, but they have their own method, response.parse, which I'm not a real fan of. It will get the body, and if it's JSON, it'll parse it into a Ruby hash or Ruby array. But it will crash if you're both of them will crash if your response is HTML. And here we're kind of fortunate. We know that this is probably going to be JSON. I'll just leave this like this, and then this would now work.
That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that it was using Ruby alone is.
It's not ridiculous. We don't one, you knew kind of going into this that the net HTTP gem was not user friendly. And
Right.
two, you have no expertise with it. You've never really used it to configure user agents or things like that. So it would take a significant amount of time to really dig into it. Like we can hack at it using Stack Overflow until we find some solution to it. But that's literally, if you look at the HTTP gem, it's probably this is the code in there, to deal with all of these weird little edge cases.
So we have to appreciate the work that the people put into that gem.
No, I'm 100% with you. If we don't need a gem to make a web request, like I said, this syntax.
I would just think to make
essentially this syntax, net HTTP
get response.
Get response, was it?
Yeah.
Get response, and then you do URI, and then you put in the URL in there.
Yeah.
That pretty much does it. It's a one-liner, and you'll get back your response, and it has the conveniences and the niceties. It's just
work for the placeholder.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just this Reddit API or this Reddit URL. So like if you were working with other URLs, if you were working with different services, you'd probably be fine with this. And I completely agree. There's no purpose in bringing in a gem when you can get away with this much. But that's all the edge cases. It's like when you're developing for the front end and you're like, yes, you can make this, you can write this JavaScript, but if it doesn't work on the Internet Explorer 11 and Internet Explorer 9 and Explorer 8, it's like you don't want to pull in a library to do it, but you also don't want to be spending all of your dev time chasing down these edge cases for these weird, and Reddit's obviously not a weird website, so I'm sure you would come across that in other places as well.
Right. And this gem is not a random one. It's pretty well maintained.
That's a good question. I mean, there's a lot of Ruby gems for that, but let's see. Ruby
HTTP party used to be
yeah, and they're all actually pretty well maintained. So this is
wow.
This is a pretty high quality gem from my perspective, from my uses, and it was updated, let's say 2 months ago.
Yeah.
So
has its own logo. That's a good sign.
But it's really nice in terms of its the documentation's pretty good, but it's really nice in terms of like the syntax for configuring, headers and authentication and authorization. There's
right, except that we're not really doing any of that. That's why I would have thought we needed to pull us in.
You say we're not doing any of that, but we are.
Yeah,
we have to configure the user agent, and we have to do some.
Exactly. Interesting. I guess they're throttling the user agent stuff to avoid bots and stuff like that.
Right, scripts that'll do exactly what we're doing. So we're not,
exactly.
But we're not hitting it up like, millions of times.
Right, and we're not malicious.
Well, I mean, I guess you were saying, it's capturing my IP address, and perhaps my IP address is hitting it up too many times, but instead it's capturing the user agent and saying this user agent is going to hit it up too many times, and anybody who's using that user agent is being counted against.
Because we are a bot. We are writing a bot.
Correct.
Okay, well, maybe we should stop the session while we have something working.
Yeah,
happy note.
Let's see. Let's clean. I'm going to delete all this code. If that's okay with you, Jay.
It is. It is not good practice to leave in all your uncommented, unusable code.
It's all.
It's tempting. It's tempting to leave it in because we worked hard on it, but we're never going to use it.
No, it's all came from Stack Overflow. Like, let the internet be our Git repository for failed code.
It's a form of hoarding to leave it in.
Yeah. So let's just double check I didn't break anything. Enter a subreddit. I'm actually using the subreddit name now. So like AWW is a subreddit. And
what is
posts from there. Like people post pictures of
animals. Oh, got it. I was thinking.
I'm trying to make sure I'm picking safe for work.
Sure.
Subreddits. So programming. For what we call it a day, might want to just at least print out the titles. Let's see if we can get that far, and then we'll call it a day.
You might regret that.
Nah. If we have it in Ruby, we're no longer in this world of HTTP.
Wait, I have an idea.
Yeah.
Let's say for a second that, oh no, we're going to end it here. Okay, thanks everyone. And now this way we can cut the video here if it doesn't work.
What?
I'm saying we're ending it now. and then really we are going to continue to try to print out the titles. But if it doesn't end up working, we just place the video where I ended it.
You have no faith, Jay. At this point, this is just a map or a loop, so we don't have to.
I'm not worried. I was just kidding around.
All right. So here's what the data looks like.
Yeah.
You have a hash with children. So instead of printing out that, let's just say this is.
Let's get the children. The children will be in a. The children is not an array, right? It's well, we'll see.
I think this is a hash. Yeah, and then there's children in it, so then this should not crash, right? Oops. You're right. Data children. So we'll break this up into subvariables and things like that. Let's just see if this works. And then your children is in theory an array.
But I don't think
it map through that array and grab.
Oh, you're right. No. Children. No, you're right. Children is an array. Yeah.
And then you have to go into data and then title. So let's just do a quick dot map, and then we'll make this code cleaner later. So you map with child. It's kind of a terrible name, but stick with it. And then each child has.
Well, child is the singular of children.
And yeah, but children is a bad name to begin with. For the purposes of what we're doing. These are posts in our case. Yeah. And then title. So, programming.
Sweet.
We have a bunch of titles, or we can do AWW, and you get a bunch of titles. Sweet. And look, you even get to see little, Unicode characters come through. Yeah. So this is the easy part. The hard part is convincing you to use a gem.
Seems like you've accomplished that. That's why you deleted all the old code. You're like, there's no going back.
Hey. If you want to pick up where we left off and say, let's really dig in and not quit until we can configure the net HTTP gem, I have no problem with that. I think it's a realistic setting where you have to make one of three choices, right? Like you either are going to have to really dig into it, you're going to Stack Overflow it a lot, you know what I mean, or you're going to read the documentation, or you're going to use another gem. Those are the options that are in front of you. But in this case, you and I both know that the net HTTP gem, there's a reason why there's all these alternatives to it. It's not that it's impossible to use. It's that you're configuring like low level HTTP kind of user agents and headers and things that you wouldn't necessarily have to concern yourself with. And it's reducing a dependency, but it's increasing your development time in terms of dealing with edge cases. So it's always a trade-off.
Right. Okay. So yeah, we did it. Well,
we did it, Reddit.
Part. So excellent. I guess next time we'll start by showing more data, I guess, than just the title, right? Because people want to see more.
Yeah, we can show more data, and we can basically make it so that the user can say, hey, this is the post that I want to see more info about. Like they can pick a number between 1 and 10 or something like that. You know what I mean? Like you can get really deep into it. It's actually, if you want to dig into the Reddit API, it's more than just throwing /.json at the end of it. It does pagination. So you can say, give me the next 10 posts, give me the next 10 posts. And you can build a whole interactive system where you're like, show them the first 10 posts, then show them the next page. If they say next or previous, show them a particular post, show them all the comments that come with it. So there's multiple web requests that you could be making here.
Are we just getting 10 posts currently?
I think it's 25, but the comments don't come with it. You would have to make a second web request to get information about that particular post.
Got it. Okay, cool. Okay, thank you, Peter. Thank you, everyone who's watching in the future. Stay tuned to the next segment. And I think I can stop recording now. How does that sound?
Sounds great.